Hello, I'm Paul Woodman and welcome to Lovecars and welcome to Brands Hatch. Over the years, Brands Hatch has been host to some incredible races. It's had Formula 1, BTCC, it's even had truck racing. We're on the smaller circuit, which is the Indy Circuit, 1.2 miles in length, and we're going to be racing today in Roadsport, but we're going to be covering a lot more than just Roadsport this year. We're going to be covering the whole championship because this is the kickoff of the 2022 Caterham season.
But before we kicked off with the racing, we met up with a man that knows a thing or two about the cars.
So, Simon Lambert, head of Caterham Motorsport. We know the Academy car. We spent a lot of time with that last year, of course, in the Academy season. 125 horsepower, special low grip tyres. But now we've moved up to Roadsport. This is James Cook's car, which looks fantastic. One of the best on the grid. Talk us through the differences.
Well, I think the most obvious difference is that livery, that everyone's realised that they own racing cars and now they want it to look like racing cars. One of the big things, Paul, is actually there isn't much difference under the skin. It is the same engine, it is the same gearbox, it is the same differential. So all the changes really come in the tyres. We've gone away from those low grip teaching tyres to Avon ZZS track tyres. They are road legal, but they are an out-and-out track tyre. We're giving you more grip, so we want to give you a little bit more control. So hidden away under the back of the car, which we can't see, I'm not going to go under there, is a rear anti-roll bar. It's got some adjustment on it and a brake bias valve, but really and truly, it's a very, very limited set of modifications, and it's all about those tyres.
So from here we go to 270.
270, and then we see some big changes.
I was never very good at those puzzles where you got to spot the difference, but I've spotted two key things. No windscreen, no headlights, but it's just fundamentally it's an Academy car.
The other really big change now is we've moved from road suspension, in Caterham terms, to track suspension. So the front suspension is slightly wider and it's quite a lot stiffer.
In Academy you teach people to drive the car with the low grip tyres, but you also teach people like me, who've never really tinkered around with cars ever in their life, to get amongst it and to be their own mechanic essentially.
Yeah.
But then you go here to the 270, you can have full team support, so you can be a proper racing driver, turn up, your car turns up on a trailer, all these guys look after it and you just look cool with your shades on like you are and I'm not. Let's go find a 310.
Okay, yes, 310.
You don't have to go from Academy to Roadsport to 270. You can skip them and go straight to 310 as Chris has. And what are the fundamental differences now with this car over the 270?
Well, it's much harder to spot because the car looks very similar, almost identical. What's different here is really under the skin because it's had a power upgrade to 152 horsepower and a limited slip diff.
If we don't get a free bottle of vodka,
yeah.
we're doing something wrong. Yeah, we will. Spray vodka. So we know about Academy, we've seen Roadsport,
Yep.
270, 310,
Yep.
and then for the first time, this is like a proper race car because all those cars, technically, you can drive on the road. This, for the first time, you can't. This is a proper out-and-out race car.
Yep. Correct. It's a 7420R race car in a national championship, and it's I want to say it's a completely different car. It looks the same, but it's fundamentally a different chassis. It can't be made race legal. It doesn't have boring things like a handbrake or capability of, but otherwise we're up to a 2-litre engine here, a lot more power, a 6-speed sequential gearbox, much bigger, wider tyres. They're slicks, full-on race suspension, everything you need. This is a genuine fast race car.
How fast? That's the question.
We're at GT4 approaching touring car times around here.
So, time for my first race ever in Roadsport, and with 32 cars on the grid and a short circuit, qualifying ended up being a bit of a lottery trying to get a clean lap, which found me starting way down in 12th place on the grid. Cracking start and my nose clean on paddock and druids meant I found myself in P5 at the start of lap 2. Then there was a big crash involving several cars, and despite the stewards trying to keep the track open by deploying the safety car, the inevitable red flag eventually came out. A solid restart and then straight off the bat another tangle going into paddock, seeing Joe and Team Paddle Up facing the opposite way. I managed to get myself up into second place and I was running really well, but it was all a bit chaotic and hard to keep track of how many laps were left. And before I knew it, I was passed twice more and pipped into fourth place. So no podium for me. Or was there?
What an incredible race. It was unbelievable. From 12th place, I had a very unlucky qualifying. I got to say, really unlucky. Should have been probably P3. No, qualifying was very challenging because it was such a busy grid. But somehow I managed to get a fourth place. It was just the luck of the gods because everything opened up in front of me. Got a couple of good starts. One safety car, one red flag. It was really quite crazy. But hang on a minute. Just hearing Jeff Newman has had a 10-second penalty for violating grid. That means I came third! I'm third!
I'm the person of the year. Grab a bottle off the shelf, time to cheers. Best friends with the top on the A-list. Backstage with the best.
I got my podium!
High roller on the slides. I'm ballin', take the shots. I'm viral, TikTok.
The morning after the night before, they took advantage of me last night. Bought me a lot of beers. This still smells of beer. The hat smells of beer. But we've got the trophy, the third place trophy. And it's an interesting grid, Joe, because there were lots of DNFs.
There were.
You were one of them. Starting at the back of the grid, what do you think is going to happen at the back of the grid?
I think at the back it's going to be a bit of a Sunday morning, bit of fun.
You do realise this is the 2021 Academy Now Roadsport, and you think it's going to be a Sunday morning bit of fun?
But this sort of happened from qualifying yesterday. Guys that were starting in the 20s ended up finishing 7th, 8th, 9th, because obviously there's so many incidents. So I wouldn't rule out another set of love taps.
A few love taps is the prediction for Joe. So just quickly, the top 10. Charlie Lower leads, William James second, some bloke called Paul Woodman third, Theo Theato, Mark Williams, Benja Headley. There's lots of new names. Mark Janinakawakanakski, Jinkoya Mark, Freddie Chiddicks in 8th position, Jeff Newman in 9th. That's going to be really interesting watching those two go through the pack, and Gareth Lucas in 10th. So we're going to have a fun race. Sun's out. What could possibly go wrong?
So race number 2, and from P3 straight up to P2 behind Charlie Lower, and things were looking good again. But then, alas, another crash on the first lap involving several cars on the first corner, causing another red flag and a restart. Even though I was in second place, as we didn't even complete a single lap, it meant I had to start on P3, my original position on the grid. Another cracker, and again slotted straight into second place, and everything was looking good again. But the Caterham gods were with me, and William Jones was forced onto the grass by Benja Headley, who then effectively had no brakes, and he parked his car on mine. It's so frustrating because it ruined my race. My A-frame broke and the car handled like it had a flat tyre, and both William and Benja are exceptional drivers, but I just think that sometimes we just have to give each other a bit more slack, because that probably was never on in terms of an overtaking or an undertaking move going into Druids like that. But these things happen, and such is life in racing. I managed to nurse the car home to a respectable P7 finish, but then to add insult to injury, I received a 5-second penalty for track limits. Overall, it was a cracking weekend. It was so good to see so many old faces and some new faces on the grid. It is a really fun championship, and most people do realise that. I guess for me, a bittersweet weekend. I got my third place, but still no physical podium.
So the highs and lows of Caterham racing. There was a red flag on the first lap. I got into second place off the start, and then I got in second place again. I was feeling good, the car was feeling good, everything was feeling good. But then sadly, William James outbraked himself at Druids, smacked into the side of me, so it was pretty much game over. I thought I had a puncture because the car wasn't handling very well. It was all over the place, and I just kept dropping down the field. It's a racing thing, it's one of those things, but it's really funny because somebody came up to me in the Parc Fermé afterwards and was saying that perhaps I didn't leave them enough room in an apex later on in the race. But the mentality is quite bizarre. Some people take this very, very seriously. My race was ruined, and you've got to have a smile, you've got to laugh about it. One thing's for sure, there's going to be no champagne celebrations today. Ah, what's this? See you at Snetterton.